Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
This, yeah, as long as CS 4354 Database Systems Project Report 1. My name is Akeem Mohammed, and I have 4 team members with me, and their names are Emmanuel Ibem, Kiriti Ariel, Bibek Dongana, and Arogia Bata. So for our project, what we did was we modeled the database design for a hospital personnel management system. Now, in this database, we have as our entities patient, department, hospital, job, and employees. And we designed an ER diagram surrounding these 5 entities because we believe this is how a hospital database system should be designed and managed. And now I am going to pass it on to Bibek Dongana to explain the 5 entity relationships.
Okay, now let's talk about the requirement of the project. The first requirement of project is we should have minimum of 5 entity type. And if we go to our report over here, we do have 10 entity type. The main entity types are patient, job, hospital, employee, and the record. And the second important part about the requirement specification was we should have at least 7 relationship type. And if you see on the ER diagram, we have more than that. We have at least 1 recursive relationship. Now I'm just trying to call my friend Emmanuel to explain more about this ER diagram.
Thank you. So as you can see from our ER diagram, we have our main entity, which is a hospital, with a primary key attribute, which is its name. And then we have the patient attribute. The patient entity is related to the hospital entity because the patient is admitted in the hospital. The patient has a couple of attributes, and from the underlining of these attributes, you can see we have a primary key of the social security number and our ID. The patient has a relationship with a patient record, which is a weak entity because it cannot exist without the patient. So it is a weak entity. Then we have the department. Each patient belongs to the department, and the hospital contains several departments. Then under our departments, we have several entities, which are the emergency response, delivery services, diagnostic testing, billing department, and the scheduled surgeries. Each of these entities have derived attributes, which are number of patients, because it's not a set number and it varies. We also have the employee entity, which has a recursive relationship with itself. As per, we have employees within the employee entity that supervise other employees, so that makes it recursive. The employee entity has a primary key of, the social security number of the employee and also the employee ID, so 2 primary keys. We also have the job entity because each employee must have a job. So under the job entity, we have the job ID, which is a foreign key. Sorry, that's the primary key, and then other attributes like salary and the job title. So this ER diagram shows a relationship between all our entities and shows how we can access them in a database based on their primary keys. I will now pass the mic to Preeti.
Yeah, so let me talk a little bit more about our relationship types. So we have here 8 total relationship types, and what it does is it explains the relationship between our strong entity types, and also we have some identifying relationships to explain the relationship between a strong and a weak entity type. We also have Vivek, if you could just scroll back up to the ER diagram. So we also have all the cardinalities and then the total and partial participation between all our relationships between the entity types. And yeah, and that's it. So that's all about the relationship types. I think we can summarize now. Back to Emmanuel.
So we've successfully modeled hospital personnel system. So our ER diagram can pretty much, we can keep track of everyone in the hospital, including the patients. That is why we didn't need to dive in depth into like, the doctors and the nurses, because they do all fall under the employee category. And then we also have like, the patient entity that summarizes all patients within the hospital. The departments also keep their own specific records of the number of patients in each department as derived attributes from each entity that relates to the department, which will be, sub-departments. So we have successfully modeled a hospital personnel management system, and I hope it's according to specifications. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think
Yeah, thank
we